All right, Hour 2 Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker up on TSN 2. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. There it is, a little Darude to set the tone for Hour 2. Now Doogie's working here.
Wasn't that like the ultimate bar tune, too? Like when things were cooking at the bar, it's like, fire that song up?
Yeah, that was a midnight track, for sure.
Yes.
That was like the place is packed, it's not getting busier. We got to keep people rocking here. That's a midnight song. Yeah, that's a great track. It really is. We got to mix that into the rotation, Doogie, right? Get Duran out and get Darude in there. All right, let's start mixing that in every once in a while.
I am totally down with that song playing on a regular basis.
Yeah, me too. I think everyone...
We need a little pump up. Fire it up.
That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for.
JP, what's wrong with that song? Do you not like it?
No, I'm actually kidding. That was a Doogie request for the horn.
Oh, Doogie's requesting the horn now.
I don't understand that. Doogie's a young guy, like, presumably he goes out.
He's Benjamin Button. He's actually 65 years old. Doogie, what's wrong with that song, dude?
It's a solid track. I'm not going to lie. It's a solid track.
You've never heard it before, Doogie. Like, there's no way Doogie's ever heard it.
No, there isn't.
He likes it now, but that would be well before Doogie's time. I didn't know Doogie ran JP's show like that, though, where he can call for a horn. Like, he's running the orchestra in there, Doogie. He's like, I want this tune, give me the horn, drop this, tell them that. Doogie's a man on a mission. I appreciate that.
Maybe the grappler comes off the top turnbuckle chain of command. Grappler to Doogie, Doogie to JP.
It's possible. That is possible, but
Grappler
the boys
manages
are working.
people. You know, like Grappler manages a group of people now. Like, think about that. Like,
yeah,
he's got a stable. Like, Grappler has his stable of guys that he has to manage their personalities. Like, you hear JP and Doogie. These guys are
when you're upper management, that's what's required.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the Grappler's running the show, man. It's a beautiful thing. He's got everyone, working straight and narrow. You got Doogie doing his thing, JP, Joe from the Bridge. Everything's cooking here. We love it. It's great. Mike Rupp will join us here in a moment. Pierre LeBrun in about an hour. I guess Pierre and CJ for The Athletic called a bunch of, great players and like Sid and I think Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and asked them for their take on what they've seen out of McDavid and what do they make of the Cup final. And Ian sent me this. I had not read the piece. It just was posted this afternoon. Because one of my favorite sound bites is when Bruce Cassidy took a shot at Arizona. No disrespect to Arizona, but not like we're playing Arizona in January.
There's no disrespect to Arizona.
Yeah, so Marchessault was asked about, the greatness of McDavid and what he's doing right now in the Cup final. And he said, quote, and he's not doing it against San Jose in December. He's doing it in June with the two best teams in the Cup final. He's doing it every night. Like, that's when you are brutal. Brutal when a pending UFA, maybe San Jose was thinking of offering Marchessault $12 million a year on a long-term deal. You are going to bury that team on the record. It's the ultimate backslap. It's the ultimate
chirp. It's one where no one on San Jose can go up to him next season and say, I'm going to get you for that comment, because it's so true.
Yeah.
Well, who would be there? Like, who on San Jose?
I don't know, but usually when somebody gives you a chirp like that, you're like, I'm going to beat that guy up, or I'm going to run that guy through the boards, or every time he touches the puck, we got to make him pay, because he's the bastard that said that. Mm-hmm. I don't think everyone would say, what are you going to do? You guys stink.
Right.
Yeah.
Self-awareness. If you're in San Jose, we stink. And you're right. He did torch us in December, and he probably did. I mean, San Jose this year was one of the worst teams of all time. Like, they were horrendous.
There's no other way around it, man.
Yeah. And
as a guy who played on the last place team, I'm really happy we're talking about other teams that were worse than us. That's very nice for me to hear.
Was that the Leafs?
On the last place Leafs team.
Yeah, they were brutal. That was a really awful team.
Yeah.
Apologies. Listen, I had to talk about you guys every day. You should be apologizing to me. You guys, that's what we had. We had to talk about you guys every day. How about an apology to O and I and Noodles and everybody else?
Yeah, that was like we were talking about, the possibility of Matthews, and it's like one of those things. And all due respect, Frankie, we called it the dignified tank because it was like 3-2 losses every night. It wasn't like 7-0.
That's nice of you
Man,
guys.
oh man, it was challenging. Every night was a loss, and it was like, God, this sucks.
I don't know. I don't know what you like. I wasn't listening to sports talk radio or watching your show at the time, so I couldn't tell you what you guys would have been talking about at the time. But just knowing that we would go play the Bruins or the Pens and be like, oh man, like let's just keep this thing close. Let's keep it competitive tonight.
Right. When you know you're the clearly inferior team, you just don't want to get embarrassed. It's not even about winning. You're like, just don't get smoked, please, right? Stay in this thing. All right, Game 6 tomorrow night. Oilers are alive. I believe, was it you, O, that said Mike Rupp suggested that whoever wins Game 5 is going to win the Cup final?
That's what
I
he
believe
said.
that was the case. Well, let's see if he can confirm or deny that statement that he brought to the table. Here he is, NHL Network analyst, longtime NHLer Mike Rupp. Zach, can you confirm that, Rupper? You're on the Oilers train now to come back and complete this Cup, or what?
I got no idea what you guys are talking about. No,
Rupper, you said that.
I did say that. No. I absolutely said that, and I believe it. I think the longer I'm sitting here, kind of marinating with this, it kind of feels like I still feel that way. I still feel strongly about it. But there's something in the last, 24 hours where I'm thinking, if there's a team to come up here in this atmosphere, right, and their game is pretty consistent, the Florida Panthers can come up here and kind of change that narrative real quick. But I'm going to stick with it. I just think that what we've seen, this place here, I kind of felt like in Edmonton for Game 4 even. It was just like, oh my gosh, we didn't get swept. Boom, let's go. We're just happy to be back here as a city and a franchise, and the fans here were awesome, but they were really, really loud. Now all of a sudden I'm like, if that was loud, what's it going to be like tomorrow night when they're like, oh my God, we can win this thing? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I stick with that. I think that they will win, come back and win the series.
Rupper, the numbers always point towards the first goal, but talk about the importance of that tomorrow night. Like if the Oilers get it, the place will go nuts, and they could possibly keep the train rolling. And it's massive for Florida. I don't think this whole season, the first goal tomorrow is so big.
It's massive. I think it was massive last game too, and then I just feel like this Florida team, man, they're a team. They're one of those special teams when they play with a lead. It's really hard, I feel like, to get back in. You're almost going to have to open yourself up. But getting that first one, if Edmonton snags that first one, this building's going. It's going to be a lot of trouble, I think, for this Panthers team to get back going. It's been a really strange series, been an awesome series, but man, there's been some shifts in certain gameplay that I think is reared its head. And when you sit here right now and you look at it as the whole finals, Edmonton's carried more play, right? I didn't necessarily feel that way always early on. I thought that Edmonton was just shooting themselves in the foot. But man, it's whoever gets that first goal, it's going to be massive.
How much, Rupper, is the danger for Edmonton being one, soft Stuart Skinner goal away or one blown defensive zone coverage away from your season ending? Having to walk that tightrope now and not having that margin for error. Are they thinking about that a little bit? Is that in the back of their minds, just your one bad play away from it all being over?
I don't think so. Listen, this is Sergei Bobrovsky that's a whole nother conversation, this whole Conn Smythe talk, right? And how things were kind of flipped on its head in the last two games. But if the Florida Panthers, he was and has been, I think, the Conn Smythe guy the entire time. But right now, you're talking about needing a big save. That's Stuart Skinner. And things aren't always beautiful, right? There's a few saves he made while we're watching up there, and we're in by our set, and huge rebound, right in front. I'm like, oh my God, there's a couple of shots in a row. I'm like, hey, you can't have that. But then it's when they need it right now, he's giving it. And I also think that the way that they've kind of cracked that Sergei Bobrovsky shell is huge. Look at how many goals they've gotten in the last couple of games on Bob. And I think now you're starting to see. I mean, Connor McDavid Connor's shooting everything. Everyone's shooting everything now. Like, they're not looking for that pretty play they once were, because I think they know they got something good going.
With Mike Rupp, well, with that in mind, if you're playing the role of Paul Maurice, if you're in his shoes, whose play the last two games scares you more in terms of what could happen tomorrow night? The play of Sergei Bobrovsky, your goalie, or the play of Connor McDavid, and what he's brought to the table for the Oilers?
Connor McDavid. I mean, it's 2 games, 8 points. And here's with all of it. I don't know what's going to be said here, what's going to come down. Leon Draisaitl's not himself. Like, he's dinged. He's not. He's not himself, so he doesn't have his big running mate. And Connor is taking over things right now. And I feel like a lot of this too, like when I made that statement before, whoever would win the last game would win the series. That's obviously a huge reason, is it's Connor McDavid. I feel like we're part of something special right now, right? Like, this is history being written, and it already has been in some regards up to this point. That would scare me, but no, it would also scare me that Henrique, Janmark, and Brown line, that'd scare the hell out of me right now too, because they have been a force the last couple games. You get the couple shorties. I mean, things are kind of coming up all Edmonton Oilers here lately, and you got a lot of sparks, and it's not just Connor McDavid, it's other guys on that roster too.
And those shorthanded goals would be an issue, obviously, for the Florida Panthers, giving those up. What is going on with Florida's power play? How did it get so ugly? Because you watch it now, it looks like, I don't know, it doesn't look connected, doesn't really look threatening, and Edmonton's getting the better chances when Florida's on the power play.
We got to give a ton of credit to Edmonton's PK, right? And I think the one big thing, and I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I was wondering, what you guys think about this too. Because Edmonton's power play was kind of held under wraps for a little while. And then there's that 8-1 game 4. And I think you want to leave town with a little bit, a little pound of flesh, right? Any game that's like that, that's how it is. And even nowadays, they got a bunch of power plays in that game. And I think it gave them the touches. You know what I mean? It gave them that time, Edmonton, to get their touches, and they've kind of broken through, and their power play has been looking much better. It's almost like Florida needs something like that, right? They need to get more opportunities on that power play. But I just find that Florida's had a tough time adapting as far as their power play all season long when it was good, and even in the playoffs, we all know what the routes are. You can see them coming, and in this Edmonton PK is just on point. And you get a couple shorties against you, I mean, it could change a lot of different things. And I wonder if that is in the back of your mind now in these games, right? Like, you're in a Game 6 Stanley Cup Finals, you get a power play, like, you should be thinking offense, but I don't know. There's got to be some scars involved there with a couple shorties last few games, right?
Rupper, you know what it's like when you've got great goaltending. You're confident. You're like, if it's a 50-50, maybe we take that chance because we know our goaltender's back there. And Bob, at the beginning of the series, was like, go nuts, boys. I got this.
Yeah.
Where do you think everybody is concerned as far as Bob, including himself? Because you got to be thinking, I don't know if I can do this right now because Bob's not in a good spot. That 5-hole goal the other night was ugly, and it's almost concerning looking. Where do you think everything is at as far as Bob is?
So I feel like, first of all, I mean, when you go back, I know this has been talked about. Chris Knobloch said this too. There's been more breakaways against Florida in this finals than I've seen in playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, so,
yeah, oh yeah.
It shouldn't happen. You got to give it a compliment to the Oilers. They create that with their speed too, but it's a problem, and I wonder if, and everything was lights out and making those saves and doing all those different things. I feel like Sergei Bobrovsky is starting to sit back a little bit in his crease, right? When he's on fire, he has that trust in his D partner, or his defenseman, I should say, in front of him. But now all of a sudden, you get to this goal that you're watching right here. I mean, we all beat up the RVH. I hate it. We see so many goals, but if there's a spot to be in the RVH, I think it's probably right there. You know what I mean? And he's a guy that is always in that position from that angle. So I think he's in between right now. And when you're in between as a player, you guys know that's no good. But as a goaltender, I mean, Bob was dialed in, and he was very convicted in all of his reads early on in the series. I think the Oilers got him guessing right now.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. And, conversely, you look at Skinner, and he was the guy we were all buzzing about leading into this series because he's younger. He got pulled in the past. Obviously, we know what happened in the Vancouver series where Bob's up for the Vezina. Bob was unreal last year in the playoffs. He's been great this year. Yet Skinner is clutch. Like his stats would tell you that, Mike, that, in games 4, 5, 6, and 7, this guy shows up to play, man. Are you of that mind that he's going to supply quality goaltending tomorrow night, or do you still question or wonder what Stuart Skinner could end up bringing to the table?
Yeah, I mean, those numbers are incredible through games 4 and 7. I mean, it's mind blowing. I think the team has clearly been much better in those games as well, so I think that kind of adds into it. But right now, when you need the big save or the timely save, he's making it. So yeah, I know what you're saying though, Hazy. Like if you get a weak one, it could change everything. But that's just kind of how it is. It's like that with any goaltender. I feel like it's something that we jump on with Stuart Skinner because that's the question mark, and that has been the question mark, right? Can this team win with him? I mean, yeah. I mean, he's getting and giving them good goaltending right now. So I don't know, and I'd use that to my advantage if I could on Florida. I mean, if you're the Florida Panthers, you got to find a way to get Stuart Skinner more too. I mean, this is the most cliche thing ever, but this is you do that with any goaltender. But that was something through the first few games. I thought they did a good job, and you got to give credit to Edmonton for kind of their box outs and their attention to detail in front of Stuart Skinner. They haven't made it as tough. I mean, how many times have you seen Matthew Tkachuk, by accident, on purpose, falling on top of Stuart Skinner in the series, or Sam Bennett? I mean, those guys are certainly involved and they're creating stuff. We've seen it, but not to the degree that you would expect from some of those guys. So I'm not concerned. This guy's been giving them the timely ones. Right now, this team, I don't think has anything to lose.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of Matthew Tkachuk, like that would have been his best game of the series. In Game 5, he gets the goal, he gets an assist. Like, do you think he's entered the chat here, and do you think he's entered the chat to stay as far as the rest of the series is concerned?
I think so, yeah. I mean, he's that guy that's what I get thinking about. And since I've said whoever would win Game 5 would win the series, this is a different animal. Like, this Florida Panthers team, this is a team. Dogg, like you've played against teams like this. You've been on teams like this. But these types of teams don't exist in today's NHL, right? Like a team that's going to go out there and they could lock it down. They can get you some ugly ones. They're going to
they can punch you in the face.
Yeah, they'll do anything. Like that to me, it's like the perfect storm right now, because if there's a team to ever come back from 3-0, it's this Connor McDavid-led Oilers team. Like that's what makes me. I mean, yeah, I could see that happening, and they're halfway there right now. But I also can, in this crazy environment that's going to be Edmonton here tomorrow night, it's going to be nuts. I can see Matthew Tkachuk coming in here and just pulling the energy right out of the building, because that's what he does. That's what Sam Bennett does. I mean, you go across that roster, that's what those players do. It was a monstrous game by Matthew Tkachuk. He needed that because he's been kind of MIA through a lot of this finals. We'll see where it leads to in Game 6.
With Mike Rupp, Paul Maurice is a guy played for Mo. He's been around forever. He's a great coach, great quote. We have noted that, when it was riding high through the first and second and third round and up 3-0 in the final, like Mo couldn't wait to get to the mic and he was laughing and smiling. Do you think he has to do that ahead of tomorrow night, or would you expect his disposition to change a little bit? And if so, how would his team and his players possibly respond to that?
All right, so full transparency, we're coming up for post game. We're on post game NHL Network in last game, Game 5, and we've already seen Bill Zito throw the water bottle. Right, we already seen that thing went viral on social. And so the press conference starts, or at least what we get brought into the press conference, and we're going to react off the sound. And the first two questions wasn't the Mo that we have been seeing in these playoffs. And I remember I said to our producers, I said, hey, if this continues like this, we got to get out and talk this. Because that to me is going to exude. You've got the GM throwing the water bottle. These aren't huge things, but for the way it's been, right? Like it's equivalent to in the room when you have a guy all season long who's cracking jokes, keeping everybody loose, all of a sudden being completely quiet in the biggest part of the season. That's no good, right? Like it's got to feel like it's just another day here. And I thought the press conference got better. I thought it looked a little more like him. But I as a player, I think you need that. That's a great point you bring up. I think you need some sort of glimpse, and we don't know what he does behind closed doors. I'm sure he's the same as he's.
That's what's most important, Rupper. You can't let the message to the guys be like, "Oh, this is panicky." You can't do that.
Yeah, he can come out in the media and do whatever. He can come out and be very business-like, and as long as inside the room, if he's being the exact same way he's been the whole time, these guys are fine. But we're not inside that room, so I don't know. But watching, at least in the media, I'm kind of sitting there like, does that tighten you up a little bit more as a team when you start seeing people behave differently?
Ooh, we'll see, man. It's going to be electric there tomorrow night, man. Good luck, because it will be wild. That's going to be a fun one, Rupper. And if you end up back down in Florida and they come back and win this, I mean, Edmonton's going to get a ton of love for that. But your call, your take, Game 5 winner, bringing it home, man. That's one of the all-time great calls in media history, man. You got to own that.
It's the broadcasting Messier call. It's the Messier
broadcasting
Messier. Yeah,
that's obviously what I was going for. But hey, no, it's messy. But how crazy is what they're doing right now, right? Like this is something that's the thing. We all sit back, whatever market you are, whatever fan base you are. Can we just admire what's happening right now with Connor McDavid? This is stuff that we're not supposed to ever see happen again, and it's happening right now.
It's incredible, man. And I wouldn't put anything past him tomorrow night, let alone Game 7 if it gets there. Enjoy it, Rupper. Appreciate you doing this, man.
All right. Thanks, fellas. Anytime.
You got it. Mike Rupp, live from Edmonton, ahead of the Snoop Dogg concert tonight, right? Snoop's taking over Rogers Place. And I thought I read online he's going to be in the visitors' dressing room. That's where Snoop's setting up shop.
I don't know why you just couldn't go to him and say, here's $100,000.
Well,
and you're not playing in Edmonton.
Yeah, I mean Snoop's got a history with the NHL. Remember, he was the DJ at the All-Star game in LA.
Jerry's hair almost fell out when he went out there and he started swearing on live TV.
Yes, one of my all-time favorite clips. We have to play it today because he was the DJ for the skills competition and he was playing his stuff uncensored, and we're talking uncensored. Like there were words being used where you're like, this is a family program we're on.
And it was right out of the gate. He was like, Snoop to the bleeping it was
everything.
Like, no way.
Everything you could imagine in Snoop's vernacular was coming out. And it was go time. And I remember thinking, watching it live, like Jerry's head must be spinning.
Oh my God!
Because it was 8 o'clock All-Star weekend.
Jerry was in a luxury box with sponsors with his eyeballs bulging out of his head.
Yeah, so we'll play that. We have to pay homage to that with Snoop in Edmonton tonight. We'll play Snoop censored at the All-Star game in LA back in the day. We still got our top 5 pressure list, a.k.a. the underpant cam list. We'll get to that, right? Ryan Dinwiddie coming up. Our best bet still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Pierre LeBrun coming up. Just over half an hour. JJ Redick, the new head coach down in LA. We'll get to that. Also, Rich Paul's comments on Bronny James and how much Masai Ujiri allegedly loves the kid.
What is he talking about? Everyone else says, I don't even know if this guy can play, but Masai loves him.
But I found it interesting that he chose Masai in particular.
Yeah, like you're throwing that out there. You're throwing that out there knowing he's going to be aware of it. So,
yeah,
Masai's
exactly.
a pretty smart guy. He said that?
Yeah. I mean, Rich Paul is a power broker in the NBA. Like some of the things he'll say on the record, I actually credit him because it's wild. Like he'll say things like, that's not going to happen, and they know it. I won't allow it. It's like, do you run these teams or are you an agent for players? But he's got so many players, and he's such a powerful agent right now. It's kind of like Scott Boras in the NBA. Like this guy just runs the show. And yesterday, he was asked about Bronny James only working out for 2 different teams. And he said, quote, there are other teams that love Bronny. For example, Minnesota, Dallas, Toronto. Masai Ujiri loves him. They could take him without even seeing him at 31. Like, how would you, A, know that? B, why would you out it? Why would you put Masai's name on it? And now if Messi does, and the Raptors do pick him at 31, I guess that just would be a sign that Rich Paul, actually does know everything that's going to happen in the NBA. It would actually be incredibly
and
impressive.
Masai's going to have to explain why no one else thinks the guy's ever going to play and you actually like him.
Did he not draft Caboclo? Like, did Masai draft Bruno Caboclo? Was that his guy?
Yes, he did.
And that was someone that was 2 years away from being 2 years away, so maybe he does have a little bit of a track record of liking someone who not everyone thinks is there yet.
That's valid. That was 10 years ago when they drafted Bruno. I remember it vividly. I was on my honeymoon. I was in Greece. I got up at like 4 in the morning, and I wanted to see who they picked, and I look at it. I'm like, who the hell is Bruno Caboclo?
Dude, I'm saying that right now.
He never played. Like, he had a cup of coffee in the NBA. He moved on. He actually ended up getting some opportunities with other spots. Never worked. Was a reach. First-round pick. What was it, the 20th pick, 21st pick, something like that? Obviously, in retrospect, it didn't work. This is a different beast, though, because Bruno Caboclo's dad wasn't the greatest player of all time, or one of them. Caboclo showed up. It was like, all right, you're not playing. If it doesn't work, see you later. Bronny James, Rich Paul, LeBron, that's a different beast altogether. And, he didn't just mention Toronto. He mentioned Minnesota, Dallas. Like, so if you're those teams, you're like, all right, I guess I have to answer for what Rich Paul's saying here, that we're big fans of Bronny James. Yeah, you don't want to be disrespectful to him, his dad, the agent. It's a wild scene, man. More on that in about an hour. Jay's off tonight, back in action against Cleveland tomorrow. Argos coming off a bye and a big win, week 1 at home. They got Edmonton in town on Saturday night. And to chat about that, among other things, early in the season, we're joined now by Argos head coach. Here's Ryan Dinwiddie. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate you doing this. And, we know the nature of the sked in the CFL. You guys get off to a hot start, and it was a tough game, week 1. Then you get a bye week 2. How do you embrace that? How do you attack that? And, considering you just went through camp, you got to win. Now you got a week off. How do you make that a positive moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the schedule's what it is. You can't, complain about it. You just got to handle it, right? We do our best to maintain the schedule and calendar and all those things. But it's similar to last year. Having the first week bye, it's no different. The best part for us, it gave us a chance to get healthy, even though we have a few guys that are going to be missing on Saturday. But, it was a good, start to the season. And then now we got an 8-game stretch. And now it's going to get really interesting.
It's only one game into the season, but it feels like it's so long ago now because of the bye week. Do you make a lot of adjustments with that, having that extra week, or is you kind of just pick up where you left off in week 1?
Yeah, a lot of adjustments. I had too much time on my hand. I had about 100 plays going into our extra day when the guys came off the bye, and then I cut it down to about 70. You got so many ideas, you get a little bit bored during the bye week. So it's stuff we can pull for future games. It's good to have it on paper, good for the players to see it. But yeah, we got to shrink it down. But I'm feeling fresh. Looking forward to it. I think we're a little bit beat up still coming after the bye, which is unfortunate. But we should have the majority of our team available on Saturday.
Coach, is that stuff with you like 24/7? Leaving practice facility, like here's a play, maybe this play. Like, are you always thinking about that stuff?
Yeah, like I'll text other coaches, hey, remind me of this, remind me of that if I don't have my notebook with me. But I have my notebook at home, got my computer I always take home with me. So my wife doesn't love it so much that I do work from home. But, when the kids are in bed, what else could I do to help, So, late night, sometimes I stay up late and come up with my best ideas.
Well, I mean, it's well documented what's happened with your quarterback position, where, Chad Kelly's suspended and he's out for at least the first 9 weeks. We'll see what happens beyond that. So Cameron Dukes comes in, and I'm curious, as a head coach and as a play caller and a playmaker like you've just referenced to us, how have you handled that in terms of the playbook, what you think he's capable of taking on, and at what point will you expand the playbook for Cameron if you see, hey, this guy, he's got what it takes and we can do that?
Yeah, I feel like we can expand it. I just think he's a young quarterback. Mentally, he can handle it. But we just try to make him comfortable as we can. Is it throwing a screen on first down, getting the ball out of his hand, getting those completions where, maybe it's a quarterback draw, to make him comfortable. So, we didn't take as many shots as we've done in the past 2 years. This last game was kind of a little dink and dunk. He did hit the big corner out to Rashid for a touchdown. So we think he's capable of making those throws. I just felt like as an offense, we didn't have a fullback, right? So we're all in 5 receivers. So it's pretty tough to get those play actions down the field and trust your receivers to block box players, right? I mean, it's tough for them to block a defense, man. That's a tough task. So once we start, we got Alouettes back this week at fullback. So I think we can get into our run formations and push the ball down the field just like we did last year. That was kind of a focal point going into last year. We got to start hitting these shots because we had them the year before. We just, didn't hit them. So that was big for us last year, given the short possessions, and we'll see if we're going to get into that this week or next week.
So you got the Elks coming up, and of course McLeod Bethel-Thompson is the quarterback there now, and a lot of familiarity between your side and him. How is it kind of gearing up for a game, knowing that there's someone across from you that you would know, inside out, and how you would attack his game, let's say?
Yeah, no doubt. I sit down with the defense down into it, kind of told him what he does well, what he doesn't. And, I mean, they watch film. They can see that as well. But I spend a lot of time with him. So there's a few things we got to take away, that's for sure. So, he can drive the ball up the seam. He can make all the field throws. And we got to be, we got to recognize that. That's stuff we got to take away. So I think, some of the things that he does struggle with is when you get pushed in his face and then throwing the deep ball down the field. So we got to be a little bit more aggressive and challenge him to make some of those throws.
With Ryan Dinwiddie, Argos, Alex, Saturday night. In terms of your motivation coming into the season, during the regular season last year, you guys were historically great. And we know what happened in that playoff game against Montreal at home. Obviously, Chad Kelly, his suspension, his situation over the offseason, it was a black cloud over the team. Let's call it what it was. But in terms of motivating and in terms of maybe having people doubt you because there's been some turnover within the roster because of how well you played and then what happened in that playoff game, did you acknowledge that in camp? Was that a driving force for you, or do you just allow bygones to be bygones? You move past what's happened in the past and you just try to basically start from scratch whenever you get into a new year?
Yeah, normally I don't like to get too far ahead of myself and revisit the past as well. We never talk about the Grey Cup unless you get there, right? It's, taking each day at a time. First goal is to get to the playoffs. Next one is to win the East and get to the Grey Cup. So we don't get far ahead of ourselves. But, yeah, the whole thing with Chad I left alone. Everybody kind of knew that situation. No reason for me to bring it up and add more bad energy. So that was kind of left. But the losing the Eastern Final, we came up with our model for this year, start to finish. And we started great, but we didn't finish the way we wanted to. And it's going to linger with everybody. I mean, everybody's got a bad taste in their mouth, but it's something we can learn from, right? So it sucks, but it's still in the past. We can't revisit it. But we have to learn from it, and we get the opportunity to do that again this year. We got to show up better. And I don't know if it's the bye week. I thought we were pretty sharp. I think we don't turn the ball over in that first drive because we went right down the field. I think it's a different ending. But, that's what happens. You don't play great football and you get your butts whooped and you got to lick your wounds and get back on it and go fight another day.
Coach, we're kind of fascinated on this show with the term learning from stuff. What does that mean to you? Like when you say you've had the disappointment and guys learn from it, so you're in that position again, like how is the learning lesson applied in the future?
Well, I think the learning lesson is, when you get in that big stage, you can't make it more than it is. And then you can't live off your past laurels, right? Like we were 16-2, great. That was a great season. But I thought we felt ourselves a little bit and we thought we could just show up and win. And you can never show up and win in professional sports. So yes. I just want those guys to understand the big picture. Guys, we had a great opportunity last year. We made history in the regular season, but we could have made real history. And we got a little full of ourselves and didn't understand the magnitude of the game and didn't understand that Montreal was, not afraid to play us. And they came in and hit us in the mouth. We didn't do enough. And we fought our way back, and then we gave over the kickoff return, and, that was all she wrote. So it's tough, but I think we all got to understand that you can't live in the past.
Do you look forward to seeing Montreal? Like you're going to see them multiple times this year, and, do you feel like you've got – I don't know if it's a vendetta you want to repay, or how are you planning on approaching that game when you see Montreal?
Just another game. I think one of the messages I might have to my players is that they think they're big brother now. And so, they're a little full of themselves. They were in the preseason, which is great. Let them underestimate us, right? So we're just going to go do our thing. We got to get better each day. They're the best team in the league right now. We're trying to get there, but we're a work in progress to where we need to go. We're not even close to being there, but there's a lot of potential in this building to be a really good football team again. But we have to go out and prove that and show it.
That mindset, that mentality that you just talked about there, like that's pretty different than what you guys were last year where you run away with the regular season. Do you like being that team that's maybe, the underdog and having that mentality like, we got to prove something, no one's really given anything to us?
I love it. It's been my MO my whole career playing and coaching. So I enjoy it. I think it's very helpful for our players to not worry about, the pressure that they might have had last year going in the Eastern Final, that we have to win this game. We don't have to win this game. We just have to go out and win it. And, but I think our players do have a little chip on their shoulder. Is bringing those guys together more, especially with all the new faces that we have. Those guys understand what we need to do to get back on top. But I think being the underdog, it makes you a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more pissed off on game day.
Well, you got the Elks on Saturday night, and then the Alouettes will be here next Friday. So it's go time. You mentioned coming off a bunch of games forthcoming. Good luck with it all. Enjoy it. We appreciate you doing this today. We'll do it again soon.
All right, sounds good, guys. Look forward to it. Thank you.
You got it. Ryan Dinwiddie of the Argos. Yeah, Alouettes in town next Friday down at BMO.
I think I'm obsessed with the comments. I think I'm obsessed with the learning lessons because I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's just tossed out there so often, and I played professional sports, and I'm like, I just really believe it's a do it or don't league. Any league, like it's you do it or you don't. What are you going to learn? I sucked that time, and then I'm not going to suck. Then I don't know. I really don't know what it means. I still don't.
I agree with you, man. Like there were times when you're leaving the rink and you're like, or me personally, anyways. I got shelled and I was -3, and I didn't learn anything. Like I learned that I had a bad night, and I was capable of having a better night. Like I don't know,
Frank. You know what you can learn? You could learn that team's way better than us. You could learn that. Like you could walk out of the rink and say that team was just way better than us, and they always will be. They're just better than us. But like the learning lessons, like, oh, what are you going to compete harder on pucks? How do you not know to do that every time you step on the ice, the field, the ballpark in a professional sporting event?
There might be small little things, like little things within the game. It's like, oh, maybe I'll look this way instead of, I don't know, like.
Dude, Frank, young player, that's for young players, development stuff, where it's like, oh, if I cross the middle when Scott Stevens is on the ice, I'll get killed. That's learning. Yeah. That's learning. But the other stuff, I don't know. I find pro sports to just be do it or don't. Young guy, old guy, it's like you get it done or you don't get it done.
When it comes to playoff time, championship time, I agree. Like the lessons are for the 21 to 23-year-old who's trying to, make a living in the league every day. You
maybe
get to the
term
playoffs
is misused.
That, it's different. I don't know.
Maybe the term is misused where they want to say that lack of success motivates us. As opposed to, we're going to learn from that and move forward. You ain't learning squat, man.
It's
you
just
didn't
something
do
to say, it feels
it
like.
Is.
Just like we're right there. Is just we're
well,
right
especially,
there.
like a lot of times, it's an empty calorie comment.
It is.
A quarterback throws a horrible interception. I'll learn not to throw that. Great. Yeah. Obviously you'll learn not to throw that.
Well, how many times have the
pick.
Leafs said after a playoff loss early on, we're going to learn from this moving forward. The next year they lose. And it's like, well, but nobody posed the question, well, I thought you learned from that.
Right. It's an empty calorie, get out of Dodge comment.
It's a silly comment. It's a silly comment.
It's a get out of Dodge comment. Leave me alone. We're going to learn from it. So everyone's supposed to say, oh, that's great. You know what? Who cares?
So let's put it to bed. It's a stupid comment and don't use it anymore. Anyone in sports.
Yeah, I hear you. What I love is when guys say we're going to learn from the win. It's like, okay, we're going to learn from winning. Yeah, I would.
Maybe there's something to that, though. You learn what you can do and what you can't do, and that worked. But like
from losing consistently, I think in Toronto in particular, it falls on the deafest of ears, if that's even a saying, because you just never win, right? Like you never learn. It never gets applied, and it doesn't only apply to the players. Management, the big topic around the Leafs is what are they going to do with the core four? What are they going to do with these guys? And will they learn? Well, I don't know. I mean, they may come back with the four of them, which would suggest what? What did they learn? And a lot of it is also it's how you interpret what you learned. Well, I learned we got to keep doing that. Oh, okay. Well, who's the professor? Who's marking this?
You've got to be
quiz.
persistent. You can't give up too early. It's like the picture of the guy digging for the diamonds, and he stops, and the diamonds are just on the other side, but he stopped too early. You know, like that's kind of what it feels like with where the Leafs are at. If they bring everyone back, they're hoping that just by the law of averages and throwing it out there again, it's going to be different this time. Because I don't know what you can like quantify and say that is actually different, but within that group.
I guess we'll find out, come opening night. There's a lot of different rumors out there in terms of what the Leafs are going to do with Marner. Are they trying to keep him? Are they trying to sign him? Are they going to let it play out? Are they trying to trade him? Are they listening to calls? And that's another thing this time of year. You hear it all the time. Brad Treliving's in on everything. What the hell does that even mean? Like, what does that actually mean? In on everything.
I think that comment's taken out of context. I think what Brad does is he does his job, and he's always in contact. These people are always in contact with each other.
Well, that's different, though.
But the people that they're taking the comment to the next step, saying he's in. Just because you're calling around and doing your due diligence and doing your job doesn't mean you're in on everything.
Right.
The idea of being in on everything is right to the finish line where it's like we just missed out on that guy. It's not possible to be in on everything.
Exactly. And
So,
I guess that's the point. It's used out of context.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, he's in on everything. Does not mean like him knowing the information is mandatory.
Not everybody's in on everything.
But
we got two things. We got no
be.
more lessons learned. That's out, and in on everything is also out.
Right.
We got two.
We're canceling them.
Done.
Exactly. They've
Done
got to
with
be canceled.
Yeah.
They have to be. All right, Pierre, in about 20 minutes, Pierre LeBrun will join us, and Dan Weike will join us of the L.A. Times. J.J. Redick, the new head coach of the L.A. Lakers, his take on that. LeBron, Bronny, Rich Paul's comments that Masai loves Bronny James. What does Dan think of that? Among other things still to come. Our best bets as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Pierre LeBrun still to come. Best bets brought to you by FanDuel. We've talked a lot about Tom Brady on this show, obviously about his career, what he's doing off the field, and what he could end up doing with his second career in media. And he was on with Colin Cowherd yesterday, and it was a very captivating interview. The guy's an interesting guy, man. I got to be honest. I've had my doubts about Brady in the booth. I've had my doubts, and I know we've discussed this many times, but he's very comfortable on the mic, which is huge.
Yeah.
He's smooth. He's got knowledge that obviously no one else has. Like, he's done it all. He's seen it all. And by all accounts, he's willing to supply that knowledge and that wisdom. And I'm coming around on TB12 in the booth. I'm curious what it's going to look like. But based on his chat with Cowherd and other interviews he's done over the last 6 to 8 months, this guy seems to have a lot of ammo. And
instant street cred when you're the GOAT and you make the right decisions and you play winning football and everything you do, the comebacks, the fourth and long that connects every time. You have the street cred like no one else does where you could say, that's a stupid play. I would never do that. What were they thinking there? And everyone's going to nod their head and say, the GOAT just said that, so you're stupid.
Yeah.
The other thing that's going to happen with Brady in the booth, if it goes well for him, he's going to say, in New England, actually, in this situation, we did that. And people are going to be like, oh, my God. It's like you're in the huddle with
I don't
Brady.
think that's the best idea to always go to the line when I was in New England. I think it's just better if you say, that's the wrong play. That's the wrong play. Who wants to hear a guy, and I don't know what you do, Frank, but I try not to be the guy that goes, when I played.
No.
Well, everyone knows you played. And everyone knows Brady played.
Yeah.
And also, you got to be careful. Like, the guys in the booth, they get information from players, from coaches, like that allow them to be informed, but they can't out, a lot of the secrets or a lot of the things that they know.
There's prep meetings with coaches where they say stuff where they know if you say this or anything like this, I'll never speak to you again.
Right, exactly. And, on top of that, you also don't always want to be looking down on people like, hey, when I played, I did this.
Okay, let me correct myself there. Not when I played, more just if you give people a little peek behind the curtain.
Yes.
Like if you give them that, I think that's what I'm
using an analogy, as opposed to like, well, I wouldn't have. Me and Bill wouldn't do that. You guys stink. You're right. In the moment, if you can draw off something and say, I remember a scenario when we were doing it, that can apply here. Yes.
In New
I think
England,
that has a lot
Rodney
of
Harrison
value.
used to kill that guy if he went across that play. Something like that.
Just
That has a lot of
drawing from
value.
his experience will be very cool for people to hear.
Right.
Because he's such a winner and he's such an interesting character.
Well, and I mean, he's, you look at the other guys in the booth, like Collinsworth was a wideout. Aikman won Super Bowls. He was a first overall pick. Didn't play anywhere else. Like Brady, Romo was a undrafted player that never won. Not that matters. The point being is, like, Brady was an underdog, 6th round pick, played in multiple spots because he went to Tampa, won everything, won MVPs. There's nothing he hasn't seen or done. And in terms of him having the ability to criticize guys, that can be tough for some people. It can be very difficult to do. And I don't know if he's got the stomach for it. I don't think he's going to. And no one wants to hear you just rip on people all the time.
No, there's a way of saying great player, bad decision. You don't have to say the guy's a piece of garbage.
Exactly. You never want it to be personal or over the top or too scathing.
No.
But anything he does say, he doesn't have to explain a thing. Like, the player can't be like, Tom, what are you talking about? What the hell?
But sometimes when somebody
Brady.
takes an outrageously stupid penalty or something that's costly, you have to say that that's insane.
Mandatory.
And that's ridiculous and stupid.
That's
without
the job.
saying the person is a piece of garbage.
Yes, exactly. There is a line there, and you don't want to cross it. And I don't think you will. All right, final hour coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.